You?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to include in that, but
Well, I think the thing about basically you were trying to expose, from what I understand, what
Yeah.
you've told me, is you were trying to expose academic incompetence or academic malpractice or lower academic standards. You were trying to
Yeah.
uphold academic standards, and because of that, you were subjected to all sorts of coercive kinds of tactics by Thompson Rivers. Then I think we want to talk about academic freedom,
Okay.
and then TRU's and Thompson Rivers and TRU. So, like, what is Thompson Rivers University's track record with respect to academic freedom, and what kinds of are they doing a good job at protecting academic freedom? Are they failing? How are they failing? And then what would be great is some of the information that you have about the indigenization aspects. If you know anything, like you were just telling me about some student or
Yeah, I actually don't have much direct information. Most of what I know is secondhand. Anyway.
That's okay too.
Okay. But I'm not sure.
And you don't need to use any names if you don't want to. You can just talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I know someone mentioned that they had talked to someone who was in the band and cautioned her that they had not found graves, but only the possibility of graves.
Okay.
Which I thought was quite interesting, but I have no idea who that person was. So.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
So that's like that. Having information like that, because we're going to be going into Thompson Rivers on. The hope is to go in on Tuesday.
Okay.
To do a spectrum street epistemology session on the remains of 215 children, ? Remains of 215 children. Are there remains of 215 children at the Kamloops Indian Residential School site? Like, that's the question. And to see what people's thoughts are.
So you're just looking for random people there to respond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we got Shabbos. We want to, it's going to be seen as, I would imagine, a somewhat of an unwelcome question.
Yeah, I don't know. Most TRU is very dependent on international students, so you're going to get a lot of Indian students who won't care one way or another.
Won't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Are we going? We're not rolling. Are we rolling?
I'm rolling. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So just so you know,
Oh,
but we
okay.
can, you know, like it's. This is going to be a very. It's just trying to find out. So Derek, I'm here with Derek Pyne, who was a professor of economics.
Yeah.
At Thompson Rivers University.
Yeah.
And what years were you a professor there?
I started in 2010, and depending on what you count as the end date, probably 2003, I guess.
Okay. 2003.
Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still technically getting paid, but I think it's probably that would be the official.
When was the last time you taught there?
The fall term of that year, so it'd be fall term of 2022, I guess.
Okay, fall of 2022.
Or actually, I better think about that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, and you, as far as I know a bit about your case, and you were you fired from Thompson Rivers University?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Or at least negotiated a settlement. So
negotiated settlement.
Yeah.
So you were forced out of Thompson Rivers University.
Yeah.
Because you would have wanted to stay there.
I mean, yeah. And I probably could have fought it more, but taking a settlement seemed like the thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happened with respect to this situation?
What?
You don't have to go into every single detail, but if you could just give us a broad outline of it.
There's 3 big stages for their investigations. 4 really, but one they canceled. The last one was when I pointed out that they had people who had committed perjury in affidavits they submitted to OIPC.
Okay.
And that was the final straw for TRU.
Okay. And what is OIPC?
BC Office of Information and Privacy Commission.
Okay.
I've got had a whole bunch of FOIs in with TRU that they were fighting over trying to get information from them.
Okay, so you were trying to get information from Thompson
Yeah.
Rivers about your case and
Yeah.
other matters, and you were saying that people in these processes, a number of them perjured themselves by providing false affidavits.
Well, one person definitely didn't. The FOI he perjured himself in was for another third party who was
Okay.
trying to get information about my case.
Okay.
And he had contacted me to see if the affidavit could possibly be true. He claimed that the only communications he had about me had to do with his research projects. Research projects are exempt under the privacy freedom of information laws. However, it turned out he had hundreds of pages of other documents
Okay.
that I had got from my FOI requests.
Okay.
So that case was pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Although TRU is claiming he just forgot about these hundreds of pages of
Oh,
documents.
okay. Yeah.
I think, I forget how many hundreds of pages right now, but
So he lied about.
Yeah.
You're claiming he lied about
Yeah.
having these 100 pages of
yeah,
documents.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, he had them, but then he claimed later he had forgotten about them, basically.
Okay. All right.
And another lawyer submitted an affidavit that contained false information. He claimed it was an oversight.
Okay. Yep.
Um,
And so, the original nature of the processes which eventually resulted you getting pushed out of MRU, or sorry,
TRU.
Freudian slip there, out of Thompson Rivers University, had to do with you doing research on faculty members and administrators who were
Yeah.
publishing in predatory journals.
Yeah, they didn't seem to mind the research itself as long as it was in an academic journal that they figured no one would read.
Okay.
But when they got a few interviews, like for instance, they claimed an interview I gave to the New York Times was harassment.
Okay.
Even though I did not name any names in the New York Times interview.
Okay.
And that was part of the first big case they had against me.
So you didn't name any names. You said there's a number of faculty members and administrators at Thompson Rivers University who are publishing in predatory
Yeah. And I
journals.
mentioned that the year before, everyone who got promoted had a predatory publication from the business faculty.
Okay.
Now, they said everyone meant it was
Oh.
the equivalent of names, but
Okay. Yes.
yeah.
And could you just explain what these predatory journals are?
They're relatively new things. Basically, as you would know, getting real publications can be a lot of work, a lot of refines, resubmits, etc., etc. Predatory publications, they basically, you pay them, they publish. For instance, Omax is a particularly famous one. Omax is, they're based in India, and the U.S. government took them to court, the U.S. Justice Department.
Okay.
I got a $50.1 million judgment against them.
Okay.
TRU is claiming it's a matter of opinion, though, whether they're predatory.
Okay.
Even though the U.S. courts and an appeal court upheld the judgment and did find they were a predatory publisher.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting that they claim it's a matter of opinion.
Because it's not. It's pretty much established that they are a predatory journal.
As far as the U.S. court system is concerned, it went up to a circuit court level.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So you were making these statements in the media that all these professors and administrators were engaged in this predatory publishing process. They charged you with harassment.
Yeah, they had a, basically, yeah.
And an investigator found that you had engaged in harassment?
In some cases, not for the original publication, but they argued that New York, in particular, they cited the New York Times interview as an example
But
of
did
harassment.
they found that you talking
Yeah.
to the New York Times was amounted to harassment?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And why did they think that it was harassment?
Harassment, harassment is one of those general terms that it can mean what they want it to mean, I think. They said people had a right not to, actually, it was never clear to me how when they didn't mention names it could be harassment. That was a problem to me.
But
So
even if you had mentioned their names, why would that be harassment?
Well, that's a good question too. But in academia, TRU has this strange harassment policy that's more than the criminal code harassment charge.
Okay.
I mean, this one, it does not have to be repeated. It can be a one-time instance.
Yep.
And yeah, I didn't really understand that myself, to be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah. Because I find that very odd myself.
Well,
that-
especially the New York Times. It's not like, an interview with a Fox News type. I mean,
Yeah,
New
yeah,
York Times is
yeah,
a
it's very
pretty,
establishment kind of thing.
yeah.
But it seems to me that trying to uphold academic standards at an institution, an educational institution, an academic institution, is something that would be protected by academic freedom and therefore would not be harassment.
Yes, I mean, if you read TRU's academic freedom statement,
Yes.
which they basically copied, I think, from CAUT.
Yep.
So I don't think it's really their own statement, but it is very expansive. It says you don't give up your charter rights to freedom, which is something other academic freedom statements don't say, and it sounds very broad. However, they also have, in the same section, but different subsection, they have their harassment policy. And there's also provincial harassment policies too. So, and of course, private agreements can't override provincial law. So I'm not sure how much I can say about that. They also argued that tagging union officials, this was later they made this argument, that tagging union officials was also harassment.
So from what I understand happened is you were not very happy with your union. You did not think your union was doing very much to protect your academic freedom.
Yes, and you may recall that case at Brock University.
Yes,
but
that was what I was going to say. It was about the Brock University union defending, being actually defending people's academic freedom.
Yes, and I had a link to that an article their union wrote about the professor involved. I forget his name right now, but
it was Hudlicki, I believe, Thomas Hudlicki, who had academic freedom problems at Brock University.
And then in the comment section, I added some links to union people who had been involved in my case, but no comment, just links to them. Like I had a FIPSI person.
Yeah, and who is that? What was that? What is FIPSI? But what kind of thing is it?
It's what the Thompson University Faculty Association belongs to.
Okay.
So they take care of they own grievances and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
They have the full-time staff.
So they're basically the bigger union that oversees other unions in British Columbia.
Or not all of British Columbia. SFU, UBC, they have their own organization. This is for the former places that used to be teaching schools back in the day.
So,
I think the Thompson University Faculty Association, they're technically called either Local 1 or Local 2 of that organization.
Okay, so you Thompson Rivers University used to be a teaching kind of college.
Yeah.
So it's not like one of the big playing academic institutions like Simon Fraser University or University of British Columbia.
No.
And so the union that oversees what goes on at Thompson Rivers University is not at the same level of professionalism. One would expect it not to be at the same level of professionalism as you'd see at those more academic institutions.
I think that's probably true. I think that's true. A few years ago, UBC had a former Supreme Court justice investigate an academic problem there.
Yeah.
You would never get that at TRU.
No. So you were involved in this situation whereby you were kind of notifying your union members about this situation at Brock University, and you were, to some extent, letting it be known publicly that you were not very happy with their defense of your academic freedom.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
And because you did that, they charge you with harassment.
Well, that's what they used to justify the 1-year suspension later. They did not use the original report on the New York Times and stuff.
Okay. But did you get disciplined for that? Like a letter of reprimand or something?
No, that was not clear. Basically, the first problem occurred when I had the what was it? It occurred around the same time, and they originally gave me an indefinite suspension, whatever that means, which they then reduced to 2 weeks, and that was connected to the media interviews and stuff. They claimed they were defamation at the time.
Okay.
Now, defamation has precise legal definitions, like you, and the defenses against defamation are obvious. A, truth.
Yep.
B, qualified privilege. And there's an article done at the University of Saskatchewan, a case, I think it was back in the 50s, where they fired someone for his feedback on tenure and promotion cases.
Okay.
And this guy had really bad feedback. I mean, he had 4-letter words and everything in it. And they wrote that a form of qualified privilege existed, and I actually told them about this, and the human resource director, when I told him that, said defamation was whatever he said it was.
Okay.
And he was pretty blunt about that.
Okay.
Anyway, I think eventually they realized they did not have a defamation case, so later on they moved from defamation to harassment.
Okay.
And I mean, they also claimed The Economist magazine, where I gave them an interview, that it was defamation. So they ended up, but I think they ended up realizing they did not have a legal case for defamation.
Yes.
I don't know how they thought they did to begin with, but
well, they were just trying it on. It sounds like this is what generally happens: is you have all these litany of accusations, and you're just trying to see whether any of them stick, and then the ones that do, kind of, you can get away with. It continues on.
Harassment is much looser, though, right?
Yeah, tell me about it. I know all about that. Yeah. So okay. So in terms of your case, just so that people are aware of what happened, you were pushed out of Thompson Rivers University because you were trying to uphold academic standards in the university, and because you were trying to do that, and because you're also trying to some extent criticize your union for not upholding your rights, you eventually got levels of discipline that resulted in your not being able to teach at that university.
And the final one involved my plagiarism accusations. But
So you accused people of plagiarism, and that was found to be harassment?
Yeah, but I did it publicly, named them, right? But they still considered that harassment.
Yes.
Okay. Although they never denied during the investigation that plagiarism was involved. In fact, they never asked me if, well, they asked me if I had evidence. They said I did have evidence, but they never asked to see it.
Okay.
So
all right.
It seems that truth is not a definition of when it comes to harassment.
Truth doesn't defend you.
No.
There's no defense. No defense that something is truthful. For it to be harassment. Yeah, I've heard that too. Because, and the example I was given is if you call someone a fat slob, for example. Even if they are a fat slob, it doesn't matter. Because it's a hurtful thing to say.
But
so them being a fat slob has no bearing upon whether it's absolves you of
But when it
harassment.
comes to legal things like perjury, I mean, to me, I mean, that's a criminal matter, and that might still get to court. This person who launched the original FOI is still being litigated now.
Okay.
So hopefully he'll get some more information on that.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so I think people have a pretty good sense of this. Just listening to you talk about this, I'm just astonished. I have to be. I'm astonished that this has happened. I don't understand how this could even happen.
I mean, at one point I had a bunch of FOIs in for conference expenses. Because I thought I'd expand my work from journals to conferences, and I picked obvious cases like Omex because no one, got U.S. Supreme Court, not Supreme Court, but U.S. judgment against them, and another one, WASET, W-A-S-E-T, who the media at the time had a lot of articles about their predatory conferences, and so I put FOI requests. TRU tried refusing them. And normally conference expenses in the category that TRU you have to respond to.
Yeah.
But they tried claiming that my FOIs were harassment because the people who mainly went to OMEX conferences, most of them were in the nursing faculty.
Okay.
A couple were in education, and then I think there was one from economics.
Okay.
And so anyway, the OIPC denied that argument.
Yep.
And just after that, TRU abandoned their harassment investigation for that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I found that telling that they were clearly just using it to try to get around the FOI. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So, academic freedom, Derek.
yeah,
So, it seems to me that Thompson Rivers University is not known for its protection of academic freedom.
oh no, they even hired a president with their history of opposing academic freedom.
And this is, I assume, Dr. Brett Fairbairn.
Yeah.
So he had a history of not protecting academic freedom, and they knew about this, and they hired him anyway.
Yeah, they tried to whitewash it at the time. They sent out an email saying the committee unanimously supported the recommendation to hire him, and they thought they had seen all the evidence and they weren't concerned with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, with your case, with the hiring of the president, that seems to be a lack of concern about academic freedom. With your case, it seems to be a lack of concern about academic freedom. The union at Thompson Rivers University doesn't seem to take this very seriously.
Well, they ended up taking it more seriously later.
Okay.
I think that happened my 1 year suspension. I started also talking about the union in the media.
Okay.
And just after that, they did file a grievance that mentioned academic freedom. The original two grievances never even mentioned academic freedom. The original two grievances, the FIPSI rep said all other relative sections of the collective agreement, and he said that would include collective agreement. However, an arbitrator ruled it did not because TRU submitted a grievance for procedural issues. I was not informed of the purpose of the meeting at which I was suspended in, and that because they did not mention substantive issues, he argued that academic freedom was not covered despite that line about all other relative parts of the collective agreement.
Well, but the union, in your view, how well did the union defend your academic freedom?
Well, to begin with, they did not at all.
Yes.
And for the first grievance, they did not. Later, they did file grievances that included that section of the collective agreement, but by then they had different people take over the case.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure how much that meant.
Okay.
But they did seem to reverse themselves from originally claiming academic freedom was not involved.
Okay.
And originally they stated the truthful reps actually stated that to me, that they did not think academic freedom was involved. That's when I asked CAUT to investigate.
And so the Canadian Association of University Teachers, which is the union that represents all unions, actually wrote a report saying that your academic freedom had been violated.
Yes. They were pretty clear about that.
And this didn't seem to have any effect on your case.
I know. In fact, the president of TRUFA at the time, when the report came out, sent out an email to the union members saying that she disagreed with the report and they had more facts than CAUT did, even though CAUT had all the meetings in the union offices, and that thus they did not think. Basically, they denounced the CAUT report.
Yes.
That's
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, our union is only indirectly a member of CAUT. They're a member of FIPSI, and FIPSI is the member of CAUT.
Okay, so it's not just a direct membership.
Although,
Yeah. Okay, well, that is amazing. Because usually when CAUT comes out and says things, unions don't, the smaller unions, the unions under them, don't really think they have the expertise that CAUT does with respect to academic freedom, so they generally defer.
yeah. Oh no, in this
to
case,
Canadian Association
in this
of
case, I
University
could give
Teachers.
you a copy of the union president's email, and it's pretty clear as he
Yeah.
denounced it.
Okay, yeah, and this is the union president
Yeah.
who is saying that people really shouldn't listen to the academic freedom analysis of the Canadian Association of University Teachers, which is has the most expertise about academic freedom, the parameters of academic freedom in Canada.
Yeah.
Anyway, Derek, so I think people get a bit of an understanding that Thompson Rivers University is not really known for, one, its academic standards, doesn't really have high academic standards, and two, is not really an institution that protects academic freedom.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think that's fair.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the matter at hand that we are involved in here. So what we're doing is we are investigating the massive institutional failure which has resulted in this deception about the unmarked graves, that there was there was an announcement that the body or the remains of 215 children had been confirmed at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So that was, do you remember that announcement?
Oh, I remember it being all over the media. Yeah.
Okay. And what was your thoughts about that at the time?
To begin with, I was surprised and a bit shocked, but over time, when they never exhumed the bodies, it seemed clearer and clearer that they likely did not, that something was going on. Okay. I mean, to begin with, it seemed very surprising.
And why was that surprising to you?
Well, just the numbers involved, right?
Yes.
And